Hey, hey, hey. Welcome, loyal listeners, and welcome to Agents Influence Podcast, Conversations with Jason Cass. And today I am joined by Abel Travis. So I'm excited about that. If you don't know who he is, why I'm talking here, go find him out on LinkedIn. You're going to find out he's an insurtech guy. He's an insurance guy. He understands kind of the carrier side a lot. I don't know so much about the agent side. He knows about insurtech. He's motivated by it. I'm excited to talk about it. Before I do, AIBrainshare.com. AIBrainshare.com is going on September 13th, 14th, and 15th. Prospecting, sales, and today and tomorrow's world. We're going to be talking about how we're going to use insurtech products, and we also like to call them indie tech products. How we're going to be using those products to be prospecting in and selling in today and tomorrow's world. So check that out, AI Brainshare. It's not a conference, not a convention. It's invite only. Go check it out. Thank you. Abel, welcome to Agents Influence, man.
Jason, thanks, man. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. You know, this has really been a long time coming, so very excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, it has been. For all you loyal listeners, you know that we wait for the time to be right, but I have been trying to get with Abel, and he's been going back and forth with me, and that just shows how busy we are, even in some time of these challenging times. It's one of the beauties of insurance. Sometimes we didn't see the slowdown that a lot of other people did. Thank you, Lord, for making it that way. So what I want to say to you, Abel, is we're going to get right into it if you are.
Absolutely.
You an iPhone or you a Droid user?
I'm both actually, but so I use the Android for my personal things and also iPhone for work, but I love the Android.
Really? That's great. I do too. I really do. That's good. What's the last app you downloaded?
You know, the last app I downloaded, yeah, it's funny. I have to think about this one. I think, this is going to sound like old school, but I downloaded Microsoft Office apps for Android. And it was really, with all the traveling that I'm finally doing again, it just made it a little bit easier to navigate what I need to do on the phone.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it really, truly is. Everything, calendar, email, but, Teams is huge for us. I don't know if you use Teams. We use Teams. One of my
Absolutely.
businesses uses Teams. One of them uses Slack. So I think that I think they're both awesome. I think Slack, the way that they have the channels and the direct messages is easier than Teams when you have to click chat or click over on Teams and find something going else because anyways, we're going off here. But I really, truly do like Teams. It's become a vital part. I believe it's part of your digital ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
Someone should be able to look at your business or your agency or company and be able to diagnose and say, wow, they've got a big digital culture going on. They like to share. They're the future. I think it could be brought as valuable sometimes as the other accounting records we look at when we're purchasing or valuation of agencies and businesses,
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about the critical nature of using Teams, for example, or any one of those capabilities, especially as we saw what happened last year, during the very challenging time of COVID. I mean, everyone was sort of thrust into this sort of virtual environment, right, where they needed to
Mm-hmm.
communicate in such a different way. And I think what we found was, there were software capabilities between Teams and Zoom and those other capabilities that has really helped us, whether it's in our industry or just across the board, to really navigate that virtual environment and stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. I think it's been extremely critical, and I would see that, from a communications perspective, just as critical as some of the other software capabilities that we use in our industry.
It was I was just sitting here thinking about this as I'm listening to you and processing it. I haven't thought of it this way, but it has become the email 2.0 in a
Oh
way.
yeah.
It's not email, but our email has went way down. And our email was getting crazy before Slack and before Teams was mainstream because we were using it for general conversation. You know what I mean? And so it just
Absolutely.
created all this back and forth, which is now been put over there. And so, yeah, very, very dynamic in so many ways. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
I love to win.
I'm the same way. Yeah, that's me as well. Any specific reason?
You know, I would say I love to win, just because I love the feeling that comes with winning. And frankly, I don't necessarily hate to lose because I look at losing as a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's
Mm-hmm.
losing, something that you're going for, whether it's just like trying to build something and trying to, create something innovative and something new. If it doesn't work, you leverage what you've learned and you try to turn that into a win in whatever way possible. So, that's probably why more I love to win instead of hating to lose, because really losing creates that opportunity to learn from the mistakes or from the challenges that you faced.
And I want to learn about those challenges from you, and I'm excited about that. And as you've went through and you've learned these challenges today, would you say that what's been a bigger factor, luck or skill? How about which one would you say? Even if
You know,
they're tied, which one's 51%?
yeah, I would actually say when you think about luck or skill, I would say uh, skill probably edges luck out a little bit, but I don't want to diminish luck, right? Because I think
Right.
luck have played a significant part in a lot of what we do. I mean, it's always about not only being in the right time and or being in the right place at the right time. But frankly, I think skill helps you identify where that place and time is, right? Yeah, and so then
Mm-hmm.
essentially intentionally creating that luck for you. So, now for me, it's I think for me maybe skill edges it out a little bit, but luck always plays a huge part in what I've seen.
So take us back to high school, college. Bring us forward to where you are. I mean, all the way back to the Hartford days. It looks like Travelers days, way back there. Tell us how you got to where you are, Abel.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jason. It's interesting because I never saw myself in insurance. I'm probably one of the many people that fell into this industry. So when I graduated high school, I was dead set on becoming an investment banker. That is what I wanted to do, and
Okay.
that's where I saw my future. So when I got to when I graduated high school and when I got into college, I took classes that were related to computer science, as well as finance and economics, in order to really get that more technical investment banking or skill set. So afterwards, as I was looking for a job, I had three offers on the table. I had an offer from an organization in which I did an internship with a few times, Xerox organization. I had an offer from a boutique investment banking firm that's no longer here today. And then I had an offer from the Hartford. And when I had the opportunity just to sit down with the manager that I interviewed with at the Hartford, she asked me really one simple question, and that question was, do you see yourself with the family? And what do you think about work-life balance if you're going to go into the banking industry? Because when I took that interview with the Hartford, it was more like, okay, I want to make sure that I have another opportunity in the event that these other ones that I was interviewing for sort of fell through. But I really sat back and I thought about what she asked me, and she was absolutely right. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that I had the opportunity to have a family, but I also wanted to have a life. I loved
Right.
just to enjoy. But as I started to learn a little bit more about the insurance industry, it became a no brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that with insurance, it really helps to provide stability for the people, for economy, for the business, and that's something that in the early days I wanted to be a part of. So I decided to take that offer with the Hartford, starting in commercial underwriting, and then from there ever since. I think it's just been the best decision, especially considering what we saw happen out in 2008 with the financial collapse. With companies like Bear Stearns and a lot of the other organizations. I would say the insurance industry has really served its purpose, and I'm glad to be in it.
Right. I wrote an article loyal listeners know about what does the world look like without insurance, right? Because as you said, it literally is critical to everything that goes on. You can say the pandemic. The pandemic, there was really no insurance for that, right? There was no insurance to keep the businesses operating even if they couldn't be there. And it collapsed everything. That's what a world looks like without insurance. I want to get behind and I want to get in an industry that is capable of helping other people like that. So I really like that. So you jumped up to Travelers, Chubb, the Hanover Insurance Group, which, by the way, Abel has a great LinkedIn. You can look at this and find out everything about him. And now you're with AF Group. What is that? What is that? What are you doing? You've got a podcast. You're a keynote speaker. What's this AF Group, man?
Yeah, so AF Group is the company that I work for. So it's a $2.5 billion company out of the Midwest here in Lansing, Michigan, and I'm here in Lansing right now.
Okay.
And what the focus is being a specialty insurance provider. The company itself has been around for about 115 years. And they've started off with writing workers' compensation insurance, right? And that has been really the biggest line that the organization has written up until a handful of years ago. So in 2015, AF Group changed their charter. Because it used to be a state fund here in Michigan, they had to get regulatory and legislative approval in order to change the charter to do more than workers' compensation. From there in 2015 all the way up until now, during that point, we had the ability to go into other multi-line disciplines and functions. So for me at AF Group, I run one of the companies for AF Group called Fundamental Underwriters. And what we are is the multi-line diversification for organic diversification. We're that organic diversification arm for AF Group, meaning that we look for opportunities where there is a gap in the marketplace where we could potentially offer insurance, either whether it's through helping the customer to improve their loss performance or whatever it might be. But we look for gaps in the marketplace to offer insurance for customers that really need it, and then we build those products and then deploy those products
What's the
to those
premium
customers.
size you're talking, Abel?
Yeah, so with Fundamental Underwriters, our average premium size right now is about $1.2 million, but we've only launched two products through Fundamental so far.
Okay.
One is the commercial trucking product with the auto liability, and another one is a brand new product that we created for the marketplace that's not out there today, and it's a primary non-owned auto product for the health and human services customers.
Okay. Where do you, do you think that they could create an insurance specifically for what your guys are doing that could handle a pandemic? Do you
You know,
see that there could be a premium charged and put on policies for that?
Yeah, Jason, I think that's a really great question. And you said it really well. When you look at what happened last year, uh, it was something that hasn't happened in over 100 years, but every institution failed.
Hmm.
Whether it and part of that is because the government was forced to, because in order to control the pandemic, across the different states, to deliberately shut down the economy, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
people didn't have the opportunity to to go to work, to earn money in order to make a living. So people really quickly recognized that because they weren't able to do that, either their businesses weren't able to make money, or they may not have been able to support their families, right? So even as you start to look into, okay, well, where could insurance have played a role during the pandemic? There was language that was within the policies that really wasn't that really didn't trigger, especially for things like business income or other types
Mm-hmm.
of support. Meaning that because all those institutions failed, because the language wasn't in place, the government was required to provide supplemental assistance where needed. So to answer your question, Jason, I absolutely think that pandemic insurance is needed. I do think that there's something out there. I don't know what it looks like right now. I do think that foundationally it has to deal with whether it's business income insurance or maybe a stronger insurance on the personal line side. As people will need funding in order to support their lifestyles, right? But I absolutely believe that there's an opportunity to create something innovative to support these challenges.
So this isn't exact. So all you insurance geeks out there, I'm speaking from a high level here, but this is what happened during 9/11, right? They had the TRIA Act, which gave a backstop of like $100 billion or something like that, is what the insurance companies were on the hook for. and it allowed actuarially for them to be able to say, okay, hey, we can form a rate for what we think is going to happen there, right? That's where I think that we're going to have to go, because buying that terrorism is just you're buying it as a covered cause of loss now, which then, if it's a covered cause of loss on the premises, now the business income would have triggered, right? And think about this though, Abel. They would be on a lot of them are like on an actual loss sustained, right? So this is like, this loss could have been way bigger than they thought. So if they have to take on that kind of a risk, would we maybe price business income out of the park, to where that's where you guys could have a nice product that could slide in there? The government's going to have to come up with some backstop, something that says, hey, if this happens again, I know the likelihood is so small. I can't imagine how the insurance companies couldn't possibly make money over it over the long haul, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think about what happened last year, and it was unprecedented, right? So to your point, when you're dealing with challenges that's unprecedented, and when you're dealing with financials, as you start to look at the support that's absolutely necessary to sustain the economy at that point, when you put the market capabilities of all the insurance organizations together, that's not enough to support this unprecedented event, that
Right.
we've seen, that we've witnessed with
True.
COVID. So to your point, I do think there has to be some sort of a government backstop, but I also believe that, insurance organizations could look at opportunities, or even if it's mandated is somewhat in a similar way as TRIA, to help to fund that backstop, right? So we're not sort of trading future dollars for potential challenges that we may face in this economy.
Man, I like this. I like this. This is something that, I'm making a note here, because this is something that I didn't really expect this conversation to go this way, right? So this is welcome. This is why the loyal listeners love it. So going back to you, like you've went from this underwriting, you've jumped through some companies, you've learned the ropes, and then there was like this aha moment. Specifically, I think following you, it is right around the Hanover time, and you kind of got into this like, the podcast, and then all of a sudden you're speaking everywhere, and this is Jason saying this, you're Mr. InsurTech. And so it makes me wonder, like, what happened? What was the light bulb that went off that you just said, holy cow, I got to take notice?
That's a really great question. So, when I was in the Hanover, I led business product development, management, and strategy for business insurance. And what I recognized, that we took an extremely traditional approach to what we were doing, but as I started to look out more broadly into the insurance industry, there was this sea change that I saw happening, right? And there was a change in the way that technology was being used in order to drive transformation in insurance organizations, in insurance agencies. There were other organizations that were coming in, and this was earlier on, and I don't typically use the term disrupt, but that were coming in to look at opportunities, not at that point necessarily to enable the insurance value chain, but to disrupt the value chain.
Mm-hmm.
As I was talking to people about what was happening in the insurance industry, nobody knew what was going on. So the people that I worked with, they didn't know. So what I started to do was like, okay, I would just pick up the phone and start calling people that I've seen, either building an insurtech capability, or really looking to either enable or transform or disrupt the insurance space. And I'd call them and say, hey, do you have 20 minutes just to talk to me about what you guys are doing? Or if they were in the Boston or the Northeast and New York area, I would just ask them, hey, can we have lunch, and just because I want to know what you guys are doing and what this is going to mean to this industry, right? Because a lot of what we've previously seen has really been transformational. So I didn't have anybody to talk to about this. And frankly, people around me, other people that were in my network, had no clue what was going on. So that's when the light bulb went off, and I started thinking about, okay, well, how can I get this information out to the insurance industry, really to help people understand that there is this change that's happening in this industry. It's similar to what we've seen with fintech, and what we've seen with biotech, and a lot of the other areas, and
Yeah.
that we have to be ready in order to engage, as well as to take these transformations on, right? Especially as we started to see what's been happening with customer expectations and the customer experience. So even during that time, you started to recognize that customers started to expect things of the insurance industry that the insurance industry couldn't provide, but
Right.
that was being impacted by organizations that had absolutely nothing to do with insurance.
That's
So,
right.
you think about the same customer experience that you get from like your iPhone or from your mobile phone. Or when you deal with companies like Apple and companies like Google and Amazon, and all of a sudden, there were customers that were looking for that same experience. So for me, I wanted to, to take that message out to as many people as possible, right, in the insurance industry, so they can really understand what the undertones of what's happening is. And that's how my podcast, The Insurance Innovators Unscripted, was born. Really, at that point, I took the opportunity to, made some phone calls, and I got, together with Matteo Carbone and Timothea and Daniel Schreiber from Lemonade, and just started having these conversations and asked them, hey, can we record these conversations? And of course, they were interested in doing that. So, taking that, driving the podcast, releasing the information, and really that's how, the InsurTech side of what I've been doing for over the past 6 or so years got started.
Yeah, well, that's good, man. I really, really love it, and I think that you're doing a good job. It's funny how these insurtech carriers, they really came in strong. Their technology was going to help. Now they're starting to come around to the agents, starting to realize that the big boys do have something right in the agent carrier relationship. But I believe that the good part of this that a lot of agents and agency owners don't see is that you guys, or the insurtech space, coming in and saying, okay, wait a minute, if we can deal with agents and we can pick up market share, let's think of the insurtech people out there, Next, Hippo, all these ones that are out there. If they can pick up some market share, let's do that. But the agents don't connect with us very well. And they start helping us understand the connections that us agency owners who still kind of think back in the future or the past, which, hey, when you're making $300,000 a year and you come into my office and try and tell me that I need to change, and $300,000 a year in small America is $600,000 in New York City, I don't know why I'm going to change. I would, but I'm just saying, you see the mentality of this. But to be able to say, well, we can give you a more efficient platform for you and your agency and your customer, that becomes pretty attractive, and I think that that's the good part of InsurTech in it. I also think one of the good parts is Indie Tech. Hey, well, I mean, there's a lot of good independent agents that have created some badass technology, and sometimes they're a little bit more close to what we're needing as opposed to the insurtechs, which are big with the carriers. Do you see them meshing more, the insurtechs coming down to the agency level to try to help us with technology? Do you see that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And you're right. Just even when you think about the where InsurTech and how that's matured. Originally, I mentioned they were looking at sort of disruptive capabilities, and now I look at that as more look at what they're doing as more enabling capabilities, because especially with an industry like ours, it's not easy to come in and disrupt and transform, especially given how established this industry is. So even when I think about indie tech, for example, I believe that indie tech at its time was necessary and continues to be necessary, but I don't believe that indie tech tends to be scalable on the wide scale, because typically it's being done with the independent agents versus being able to, or with
Okay.
the individual independent agents versus being able to, take somewhat of a broader scale, right? But that's where, in
Interesting.
my mind, I look at opportunities like Broker Tech Ventures, for example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
Come on,
you
explain it.
know, they take the opportunity to partner insurtechs with other independent agents, or with other larger agents, in order to try to bring their capabilities together in order to support the transformation that we're seeing in the insurance industry over the broad base of independent agents, right? So that's where I see the marrying of of indie tech and insure tech somewhat coming together,
Okay.
and with
Okay.
those insure techs being able to really drive enhancements of what the independent agent channel is doing. But frankly, Jason, I got to tell you, I've been extremely impressed with a lot of what I'm seeing play out in this independent agent space. But of course, as the agents are serving their customers and looking to engage with the carriers, they have to try to figure out if there's a way to create sort of a uniform platform that can engage up through multiple carriers instead of sort of a singular channel. So
Right.
that's really where I would see that all coming together with InsurTech.
Yeah, and I think that InsurTech can be I think they can be a good adapter,
Mm.
right? That adapter that can say, hey, this doesn't talk with this, but we can build that out. So I think that that's very, very interesting. Where do you see us going in 5 to 10 years? I mean, where do you see the industry? Does it look much different than it does right now?
That's an interesting question. I've been working out, exactly, what I think the industry is going to look like in 5 to 10 years, and I've been looking at it from multiple perspectives. So first and foremost, I think this industry is going to continue to be extremely digital, and we're
Agree.
continuing on that path of digitalization. But when you look at sort of the spectrum of where carriers are and where agencies are, there's everyone that are in different parts of that curve. So there are some that's on the left that's just starting their digital journey, and then there are others that are on the other side of this that's really made some headway. But I said this a little bit earlier, right? As an industry, we've been influenced by organizations and that have nothing to do with insurance. That's been transforming the customer experience, right? And that's been trending more towards a digital world. So I think we're going to see a lot to deal with digitalization, in that regard. I think something else that we're going to see, and it's really similar to some of what we're seeing today. But I got to tell you, I don't believe in disintermediation of the independent agency channel. I do not believe in that, right? Because agents still hold a significant direction in regards to the relationship with the customer,
That's right.
right? So customers may change the way that they're looking to get their business, and you may see commoditization for some of those sort of smaller, lower complexity business, right? But when you think about what the needs of the customers are, especially with the lower commoditized business, there's some highly complex needs of the customer that I don't believe an individual, that doesn't have that subject matter expertise is going to be able
Well
to
said.
find on their own. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think in the future, we are going to see the independent agent continue to play a key role in the insurance industry. I just think that they're going to be much more tech savvy, and much more transformational with what they're doing, from a digital perspective. And then finally, I think that there's a lot that we're seeing, but I do think that with the rapid pace of digitalization that we've seen, especially over the last year or year and a half or so, there was a statistic or a study that I've seen. I think it was from the Boston Consulting Group that said something to the effect of, we've accelerated digitalization in the insurance industry by 7 years because of COVID-19. So what we've seen happen in 2020 wasn't supposed to occur until around 2027, right?
Hmm.
Meaning that I don't believe that acceleration is going to stop, because what we've witnessed, I think, is going to now wind up being table stakes for the insurance industry. And with that, I think, came a lot of challenges that our industry has faced, right? So, we've seen ransomware, for example, become a huge issue. It shut down pipelines, it shut down large multi-billion-dollar insurance organizations. And I think that with the rapid move to digital, we're going to wind up having to focus on some of those emerging trends that we're seeing in
Hmm.
this industry, right? Whether it's what I've mentioned around cybersecurity and what
It's
we're seeing from a
crazy.
ransomware perspective, whether it's what we may be seeing in regards to climate change, right? The need for those newer capabilities in order to support this industry, but really, at its foundation, we're going to have to try to define what that customer expectation is and build our industry upon that. So that's where I think we're going to wind up trending over the next 10 years.
Going back to your second point, Daniel Burris, a futurist, which I've had on my podcast a couple times, genius man. The books he wrote in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, he's right on. And he said that relationships are the future. And one of the things that he said when you were talking about there will still be agents and it'll look differently, the way that he explained it in his terms was lawyers. He said instead of a lawyer being surrounded with 10 paralegals, they're going to need like one paralegal, and they're going to be using machine learning, AI, and they're going to be using other things to help them decide if this case is, has it been proven before, or other cases that were settled differently. That's a lot of work today, but a very small, easy amount of work for a machine. And so I liked that, and I think that agents can use that. Like having all these different people in your office may not be necessary in the future because of that stuff. I do believe there will be other jobs that will pop up, though, that will have to manage some of this stuff. I believe data is going to be so huge that I believe data will be something that needs to be managed alone. So I'm not saying we'll have less people. I think we will a little bit, but I think that it wouldn't be like, hey, we're just firing all of our CSRs. As you said, relationships are still the key. So, Abel, I want to wrap this up, and I'm going to wrap it up with a couple different questions. Leaders are readers, and readers are leaders. I know you're a leader, so you must be a reader. What are you reading right now?
Interestingly enough, what I'm reading right now, it's an old favorite of mine, but it's a good one, right? It's a book that is, and I forgot what the author is, but it's called Jobs to Be Done. And it's based on Clay Christensen's theory in regards to innovation and transformation, right? So what it does is it helps us to understand really different ways of looking at challenges that we're facing on a day-to-day basis, and then figure out if there's a way that we can go after that that's really going to help us to get to the end goal of that challenge a little bit better. So instead of like going about things in the same way as normal, just to really go about it in a different way and to give you strategies to do that. The other thing that I'm reading, because I like to read multiple things at the same time, and it's a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Dukes. And it sort of gamifies the way that you look at opportunities, and that you go after opportunities. And what it's essentially meant to do is to make leaders, especially those that are leading large organizations, again, sort of think differently about their business, right? So this author, Annie Dukes, she was a very successful gambler, right? But she's used the tactics for gambling in business in order to really have much better outcomes. So I'm reading Thinking in Bets at this time as well, by Annie Dukes, and so far it's a good read.
Your Boo and Hulu, kicks on Netflix. Maybe spend your time on Amazon Prime. What do you watch? What are you watching?
I actually don't watch a lot of television. Interestingly enough, my wife, there is a series that my wife follows that plays in the background that I do get into a little bit, and it's called This Is Us. I don't know how long this has been around.
It's a great show.
But it seems to have a pretty good storyline. So I'm not sure. Have you heard of that before?
Oh yeah, that's such a good one. I mean, man, I tell you what, you can't watch that too much; it'll pull some tears right out of your eyes.
Oh yeah,
gives you the goosebumps and stuff. I'm like, man,
absolutely.
I like that stuff, but I'm just like, man. But anyways, I'm with you there. Anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, I guess to you, Jason, I want to say thank you for the opportunity. This was great to have the conversation and just to chat about, what I love so much, especially what's happening in regards to this industry and insurtech. I guess that's what I would say. If there's anyone that is interested in insurance and innovation and insurtech and transformation and the things that's happening in this industry, I would say, you can do a quick search and visit some of the older episodes of the Insurance Innovators Unscripted podcast and get it from there. But no, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. It's been fantastic. And all you loyal listeners, I do what I do because I do it for you. But I bring people like Abel Travis on because I want to take his thoughts and his ideas, and I want to tell the world, you loyal listeners, what he has to say. This has been Cass. He's been Travis. We're out.